K-pop Demon Hunters, Haja Boy's breakfast meal and Huntrix meal have just dropped at McDonald's. They're calling this a battle for the fans. What do you say to that, Rumi?
It's not a battle. So glad the Saja boys could take breakfast and give our meal the rest of the day.
It is an honor to share.
No, it's our honor.
It is our larger honor.
No, really. Stop.
You can really feel the respect in this battle. Pick a meal to pick a side.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
At participating McDonald's while supplies last.
Predator Badlands, now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
Here, you're not the predator. You're the prey. 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 Prey.
Critics are saying it's epic, stunning, and breathtaking.
Many have come here. None have survived.
Predator Badlands, now streaming on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+, rated PG-13.
Hi, we're sisters Amy and Nancy Harrington, founders of the Passionistas Project, where we believe that every woman deserves to be seen, heard, and celebrated. Our mission is simple but powerful, to give women a platform to tell their unfiltered stories, the stories that inspire, challenge, and break the silence around what it really means to follow your passions. And on each episode, we have conversations about courage, authenticity, and the messy, beautiful journey of living life unapologetically. So what happens when you let go of what's holding you back and just surrender? Well, today's guest, Carroll Patrizi, loves to talk about just that. Carroll believes in storytelling as a way to educate. She's passionate about learning about others, always encouraging them to grow and grow their God-given gifts. She's the host of Conversations with Carroll podcast and the founder of the Surrender Movement, and we're so excited to have her here today. So welcome, Carroll.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Nancy and Amy. I hope that through this conversation, the audience understands how much I appreciate the two of you individually and together, what y'all do, what you stand for. It's an honor to be here and have a conversation with the two of you. And I just so appreciate being invited.
We love you. We feel exactly the same way about you. So Carroll, what are you most passionate about?
You know what? I feel like I'm a Marine almost, because God, really, family, country, but loved ones. And I'm passionate about people's stories. I'm covered in chills thinking about growing up as one of 11 kiddos. I'm number 6, and I was born into a big story. You know, there were already many stories going on and this collective going on, and forever I have related and learned from and shared through stories. I have to admit, I was a little bit older. I'm 110 now, but I was a little bit older when I realized that there was an accountability and a responsibility, and that I was actually an author of my own story. You know, it was safe and easy just to be part of their story. And I didn't have to make a lot of decisions because I had all these big, incredibly imperfectly perfect big brothers and sisters, and I could just copy them. I mean, seriously. Oh, fun. Oh, awesome. I'll do that. I'll go to school here. I'll do this, you know. And I was much older when I realized, oh my goodness, my story is part of their story. And I just feel like I wasn't ADHD, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. And as I say, untreated and unleashed. And so school for me, I loved it. And I did okay, but I certainly wasn't going to do any homework, because at that point it wasn't fun. I wasn't doing it with somebody else. And what I realized was it's a level playing field when you teach through stories. And there is a way in our stories that is relatable to all others, regardless of our differences, whether it be faith, the color of our skin, the number of kiddos, if we have kiddos, we don't have kiddos, if it's something that we've overcome, whatever it is, and it brings about this beautiful connection, regardless of differences. And I just feel that regardless of how you did in school, whether you wanted to go on, how you've done in business, you can learn from, and it's never too late to say, oh gosh, I'm the author of my story. And if I listen to enough stories, I'll have pearls and I can make a change in my life and become accountable for that. It really is what I'm passionate about.
That's beautiful. What was the moment when you finally realized that your story mattered? It wasn't just being the sister.
You know, I'm going to just go ahead and surrender the information. I rocking along. Things were great. I mean, and let's just call it a grand slam life, but not really one that I was running. I was just part of it. And I was married before. I'm married now to, we call him MVP. I don't know how he puts up with me, but he does. We're great partners. And for 30 years. And previously, I was married to a wonderful, very charismatic, incredibly successful on all the levels, gentleman. And we had these two incredible children that we were gifted, Houston and Alice Carroll. And all of a sudden, we're separated. It's so confusing. We're separated for 3.5 years prior to just saying, okay, I think somebody said it's just time. Y'all, what are y'all doing? And once again, I went with that. So I hope the audience hears this. It's never too late. I'll bet it's incredible. I can't think how old I was then, but I was plenty old. I had two kiddos. And I woke up one day and said, what in the world? There's nothing about a divorce that has anything to do with me. It's not on the radar. I don't believe in it. What has happened? Where did this conflicted life come from? And I went to see this incredible lady. I'd not been to a therapist before. And I sat down with her. First of all, I walked in. This will kind of tell you how out of touch I was that I could be in charge of this. I go to see this brilliant woman. She is a quadriplegic. I can't even imagine what she has surrendered and done to. She's this brilliant woman helping other people. And I walk in there like, you know, whatever. It's embarrassing. But anyway, I go in, I sit down, and I tell her, and she said, well, Carol, this is so easy. And I said, it is. She said, you continued to try harder and do more of what you had been doing. You literally were living in insanity. I was so out of touch. I didn't know that was the, you know, definition of insanity, doing the same thing, but more and more and more and more and more of it, thinking it was going to change. And it was just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So there was that. And I was like, oh God, this is embarrassing. So I thank her and I move about my life. And I then marry again to MVP, to Jeff. And about 7 or 8 years in, I recognized the exact situation. And I said, well, this is disappointing. The only common denominator is moi. So what do I need to do? So I said, okay, well, here we go. So I started doing everything I could. I thought, what can I change that will make the biggest impact? Well, what I changed was I immediately got off the booze. I thought this is foggy. The booze is not my friend. A friend of mine said one time, an older gentleman, God rest his soul, he said, Carol, or baby Carol, There's a certain amount of alcohol that's allotted to everybody in their lives, and you and I have had our share. I said, okay. So anyway, I thought, okay, that'll do it. And what I realized is that maybe who I'd tried to get away from before was myself, was the part of myself that didn't, I didn't know myself because I was just this part of this fabulous story, all these incredible people that I loved and admired and did all these things. And I did not take responsibility as an author. And we are all authors. And our stories matter. Y'all know I believe this. You know, God loves us. We're important. And it's okay to not have realized it. You know, because then you have the challenge of there's the shame spiral. Now, let me tell you, it was big. It was just amazing. I'm used to to thunderstorms where I'm from and hurricanes, but I'm not big on a tornado, and that's what I felt like I was in, the shame spiral that was a tornado. And then that was okay too. And I hope the audience hears this. Now I take this story, my old story, in front of me, not out of shame, but I do surrender that each day, but in order to remember that I can make different choices.
Yeah.
And that's really when it happened. And there was such great cost to that lesson. Literally, I was just enjoying life. It wasn't that I didn't believe God loved me, but I thought, okay, well, this is good. I don't have any responsibility even to where I'm standing in my faith.
Yeah.
I mean, I was taking it all, I was enjoying it, I was appreciative of it, but I took no responsibility for it. And that's what happened. And I'm grateful.
Yeah.
But I was old. Just so you know. You know, somebody said, "Oh, so and so is, 31 years old. They ought to be doing this." And I said, "Seriously? When are we going to allow the freedom that maturity does not matter? There's not an age. Not for 20% of us, at least." I hope that answers that question. That's when I realized it.
Absolutely, it absolutely does. So were you always someone who loved connection and conversation, or did that develop over time?
Oh, from birth. I mean, from birth. I listen in my family, and so I was born, and there were these five precious in my these incredible human beings, my big brothers and sisters. At that time, there were two big brothers at that time and three big sisters. Let me tell you what, one of our sisters, she wrote and directed plays. They sold tickets to the plays. Our neighbors would come. We all had parts. She would then, she's actually an award-winning author. Teresa Nelson is her pen name, and she does young adult writing. And this is, I don't know how old she was, but not very old. And all of us had parts. Even, I mean, I'm sure I was a baby Jesus at some point at the Christmas play or whatever. But literally, and if we weren't doing a play, she'd say, "Who wants to go to Fairyland?" I do. And she would write a story, and we would get in our dirty clothes hampers were enormous. When you have that many children, let me tell you, they build them. And I mean, it's just, but of course, when the wash had been done, so we'd all get in there. She would transform the room and do a new set and do the lights different. And she read to us. We would get at night, and mom and dad, they're busy, right? If they couldn't read, Teresa would say, "Okay." And she would read stories to us. And then, it truly, stories have been the center of my life since birth.
What was it like being in the middle of the 11 kids? Being because there's all that mythology, right, about age order and everything. And to be in the middle of 11.
Incredible. So I didn't end up as the dead center until, for many years, because every time there would be a new baby, the middle person would change. But as it stands, and after all those things happened, I have to say It's been an incredible gift. Somehow, some way, I was named for my mother. And there were three girls before I was born. So I'm just saying, and when my wonderful siblings listen to this, I know, can y'all believe it? I'm sorry, but I'm so happy. We always talk about who's the favorite, and literally, whoever was in the presence, that's who mom and dad would say, well, of course you're the favorite. And then if they saw another and say, really, you're the favorite. But and so that's always, but the middle has been incredible because I saw everybody grow up. I literally was in the midst, and let's just say my dad, one of his nicknames, my incredible father, Hurricane Dave. He could, he's this incredible Marine, lover of life, all the things. My mother's this incredibly brilliant. My parents were clearly saints, but I saw every type of parenting you can have. So you think about that. My mom was 45 when she had number 11. And they had one precious little baby go to heaven between number, 10 and 11. So we'd have 12. And my dad always thought that would be so cool. And yes, Catholic. And yet I'll just throw the things obvious out. And my mother was a convert. And as she would tell you, so she was the best Catholic of everybody. And it was incredible. I saw it go from where my dad, you think about this, he was born in I think 1920. So that there wasn't a lot of hugging and visiting and talking. It was more like, this is what happens. He lost his dad when he was 14. And so he was part of helping, and he had a lot of brothers and sisters. But the bottom line is, I literally saw my parents change from, well, I mean, I'm going to say this, it's so unacceptable, but I got belted. I mean, people got spanked, you know, people got in trouble. I'm sure this isn't going to be a popular thing to say, but I'll be honest with you, I probably deserved it. I, I, I mean, meaning that they could have tried something else, but I was kind of everywhere. And the thing about that is, and I saw it go from that to where my little brothers, who were as wild as you could be, they didn't get belted. They talked to them, and I'm like, somebody spank them. You know, I mean, I'm old enough to be able to say that. I completely. My husband said to me one time, he said, "So do we spank the kids?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, do we squeeze them?" And I said, "No." I said, "It's a new age. Nobody gets spanked. We talk about things." I don't know how great that is, but it was incredible because, and I also saw my parents go from drinking, smoking, playing bridge, then everybody stopped, because they too needed to. My mom didn't stop. She was always very moderate, our imperfectly perfect mother. It was incredible. My dad, now he was going to have a lot like I would, but I saw him going from having a bunch of money and starting at very modest means, having a bunch of money, then having no money, having a bunch of help, then having no help, seeing how they got through that. And one thing that never changed was prayer. Never. And I remember walking back into my parents' room, and you might imagine, like, I have a brother and sister in love that still live in that house. They now lease the house. What was the kitchen is now the laundry room. So every two or three kiddos, we might get a bathroom and a bedroom. And you move depending on who was there and who was in school and who was doing what. You might have a room, you might be rooming with three people. It was unbelievable. It was so much freaking fun. I'm sure not for my parents, but the point of that being, when we were younger, we would all kneel down, whether it was around the sofa or around their big giant bed, and we would pray for everybody in the family and everybody else and peace in the world and all the things, seriously. And I think they had us kneeling down so we wouldn't fall asleep because the prayers went on and on. I still say long prayers. But then I remember one day I was going to the back and I walked in and I saw my mom kneeling down, praying on the side of her bed. Now, I cannot imagine who she was praying for, what she was praying for. There was a time there was no money, so a friend, and my mother was very, very smart. And when William was a baby, she went to teaching school again. She had graduated. I had an incredible role model. Mother graduated from the University of Texas in a time when not many, the majority of women didn't go to college, much less graduate. So we had this incredible example. And then I'm thinking, wow, okay, they do this when they're by themselves too. Another time I couldn't find my dad and I went in the back. He was praying, not just with us. So just like my story, they were, they had their individual prayer. They were the authors of their stories, and then they were also part of the collective. But I just really, being in the center, I saw them go with money, without money, with struggles, without struggles, parenting these kiddos differently. And I got to know each one of my siblings. Now, the hardest thing for my siblings was that the younger ones, sometimes I was in charge and I should not have been. Because let's just say I was probably not a very good example. I was example of fun. I mean, I was like, okay, y'all want to come? Well, just nobody tell mom and dad what you see my friends do. I mean, really and truly, I do. There's still, I have to surrender that shame because I tell them, I mean, there was a lot of that. But I can't not even imagine. I have three kids, and thank God I was able to thank my mom and dad. We were so gifted. They both lived to almost 93. And I was able to grow up enough to say, thank you for making me tuna fish when everybody else had ham and I didn't like it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. I felt spoiled, and it's truly unbelievable. Being the middle child, incredible gift. Incredible gift. Yeah, there was some hard. I wanted to take on, like, I could see when my little brothers and sisters were about to get in not a little bit of trouble, a lot of trouble. And I was afraid for them, thinking they can't take it, I can. I don't really care. I mean, really, I was kind of rebellious or whatever you want to call it. And so I wouldn't mind. I'd say, "Oh, I did it. I did it." And then that got a little carried away because then they would start saying Carol did it when I didn't want to be the one. Anyway, it was absolutely incredible. I used to hide behind the sofa and listen to my sister Frances talk on the phone to boys. And she was insanely popular. I got the voice down and I answered the phone. Hey, this guy said, Frances. And I said, yeah, I mean, you acted exactly like her and accepted a date. Completely forgot about it. That guy showed up and so did her other date.
Oh,
I mean, I'm just telling
like an
y'all.
episode of the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, it was one story, except for they were kind of good kids. We were pretty wild. Anyway, it was incredible. And we grew up in a town in Beaumont. All roads lead to Beaumont. I promise y'all, if you ask around, you'll know somebody from Beaumont. And the community of families and friends, when you were friends with one person, their whole families were friends. Our parents were all friends, even if they didn't hang out. Everybody knew each other, and it was a beautiful place to grow up. And being in the middle, I'm going to say it was the very best.
Yeah.
Not
That's
necessarily the easiest, but the best.
That's fabulous. So let's talk a little bit about your career journey. So you got started in banking and real estate, right? So why did you choose those
Ah,
industries and how did your career path kind of progress?
okay, so that's really fun. Again, at 110, you've had a lot of jobs by now. First job, wanted to go to cheerleading camp. So excited, was a cheerleader. And mom said, okay, that's great, but you're going to have to help earn the money for all these outfits and for camp. Perfect. I still, people need to call me if they need a job. I swear to you, I could go get a job any place I wanted right now. If you'll work and you're not, just do a good job. You know, you might not be your forever job. You can get yourself a job. I said, I'm going to go to Baskin Robbins and I know they'll give me a job. Sure enough, you know, I don't know if y'all know that was very hard. I still love it. Very hard. That was my first job. And I thought, okay, I'm not doing this much longer because I can't work the malt machine. And I'm certainly not going to learn how to work a credit card. We didn't have credit. I didn't know. Our family did not have credit. We did not have credit cards. So my mother, when she transitioned from being at home and I don't know how she did it, taking care of all these kiddos, my dad's dearest friend, Edwin Terry, God bless his soul, and his precious wife and their family, he owned with this wonderful gentleman, Mac Fulbright, they owned a real estate company. And they did appraisals and they had real estate agents and they were just wonderful. He said to my mother, he said, Carol, you need to get your real estate license. You would be the best real estate agent that anybody's ever known. She said, perfect. Very smart. She's so smart. And teachers, let's just, God bless teachers, right? So, teacher, English major, all the things. And she gets her license, and I see a turnaround. My dad is transitioning from the lumber company into other things, and he goes into insurance. Oh, and I had gone to work for my oldest brother in the insurance business. He said, you can work with Terry Taylor in the pension department. I said, sure. I didn't even know what that meant, but I said, sure, I'll learn. I'll figure it out. Anyway, my mother, she's just doing it. She's incredible. And I said, this is fun. I'm going to learn about that. I'm pretty good with numbers, not like many of my siblings who are just, you know, crazy intelligent. I said, I'm going to go work in the bookkeeping department. They said, sure, come in. So I'm learning how to do the books and seeing how it all works and how real estate agents are paid. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get my real estate license. And I'm going to go ahead and do this because I love people. And you know, I'm sure you all know this, but as a real estate agent, that's a very intimate relationship. You are in the middle of people's lives, their finances, their family situations, the dynamics, who's doing what, the decision making. And I love stories and I love families and individuals. So I said, this is perfect. So I decided I would do real estate. Well, while I was in school, I got a job at the bank and I loved it. And I figured out I worked with loan. I said, okay, now we can figure out how to loan money. This is great. So then I thought, you know, I'm going to learn how to process mortgages. So I started doing that, figuring out how to qualify so I could help the people that were buying homes. I could help pre-qualify them before that was a thing. But I thought this will be good. So we'll be realistic about what we're looking at and they'll understand their finances and all the things. Loved it. And of course, in the middle of that, I was having plenty fun and plenty of dates and and I was just loving it. And I loved it more than I loved school. And I could hang at the lake most of the time when I was off. Anyway, did that, did it forever. Yay. Kept doing that for years and years and years. Incredible company here in Houston, Greenwood King. I keep my license. I renew it every 2 years, and I love knowing how to do the contracts and all the updates. And it has been, that was all great. Well, so Jeff and I'm selling real estate, back up, not married. Jeff is in Dallas. We had remained friends, and he's in construction. Well, the next thing you know, things are progressing and we're going to date and all the things. And he's in Dallas, I'm in Houston. And he said, okay, I'm going to move to Houston. I said, great. He'd been doing construction for 20 years at that point and gets a job. construction, real estate's all great. We're going to have this beautiful, thank you, Father, and another incredible child, just angel on earth, magical child, Mary Pat. Houston and Alice Carroll are doing great. Thank you, Father. Their dad and I have a very, very, very nice. We both understand the mistakes we had made. I can't speak for him, but I had learned so much that it was more about me, not about than him. And I said, Jeff, you got to start a construction company. I watched what he was doing, and I love businesses. As you can tell, I love starting businesses. And so far, it's all been going well. So I said, let's get you going. He said, great. He was also an insurance specialist. So I keep working. He starts the company. Well, we found the company together. I work for them at night and on the weekends to figure it all out. And then, thank you, Father, because we founded the construction company starting out with his insurance specialty because insurance is steady. Let's say, and God bless everybody, Palisades and all the things in California, that's a whole different conversation. But if you got something happened that wasn't great for your house, your adjuster comes over and says, we're going to pay you $200,000, whatever it is. Well, then you tell your contractor. Well, as a contractor, Jeff, because he's an insurance specialist, he can say, you know what? You're getting plenty of money. Say thank you. Yay. Or you know what? We need to do a serious supplemental because for whatever reason, your adjuster or whomever, they've forgotten about this and you really need 100, 200,000 more dollars. And because he has such a great reputation and he's done it for so long, insurance companies, let's say 98% of the time, are going to pay off what he gives to them, if that's a supplemental. And then you, as the partner, as the homeowner, you can choose to work with him or you can get somebody else. Well, he's a wonderful person. He's incredibly fair. And so I'll say 9 times out of 10, a lot of times, 10 out of 10 times, he would be awarded the project. Then the next thing you know, he's doing their second homes and their kids' homes and their friends' homes. And so fine. And then it was busy enough that I kept my license, but I started working for them. We started building a team. There's nothing like a team, nothing like community. And so now I think I have on my cam hat actually. So I did not sell actively. I kept my license and I could refer, but I started working full time doing design and space design and working with people before they go to the architects. Long story short, we have this beautiful team, and so Jeff and that team now work here and in the Hill Country a little bit and Galveston and so it's grown to be this beautiful team. And from then it was time a few years ago, I thought I can semi-retire. We've built a team that's they don't need me. I love to learn. I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start telling stories. I'm going to tell stories about the mistakes I've made, the wins I've had, the struggles, finding the light through the struggles, and start sharing these stories. And I thought my brothers and sisters were going to be very excited and all come on and tell their stories. And they were like, oh God, you're doing it again. What are you doing, taking us to do that? So now they're slowly coming in and sharing their stories. But I said, well, y'all, I'm going to tell everyone else's stories. I'm going to invite people in that want to share and help people. Let's say like an AA meeting. You go to an AA meeting, you don't know anybody, and you're all very different. I mean, enormously different. Maybe you were under a bench and you're lowest, and maybe somebody else just, had an act, whatever it can be. And as a listener, you're getting these pearls and you realize how connected you are to all these people that are so very different. So really, again, another gift from something I experienced. And I learned that it's really about being curious. And I'll do that again. Somebody said, "Oh, they're not really an alcoholic." I said, "What? Because they're not under a bench? Maybe you don't know, but they're just depressed because they drink." You don't measure people's hurt. You don't measure people's anything. You don't compare. It doesn't mean there's not a pearl that's similar that helps people. And that's how this conversations with Carol and the surrender, which I love, everything came from all of that.
Beautiful.
So why is that theme of surrender so important to you?
You know, all those years of not being taking accountability or understanding the opportunity of being the author of my own story and my incredibly beautiful original family, not well, incredible original family, I'll say, of being one of 11 and my amazing parents. I had no idea that other people did not feel like that about their families. I did not know that.
Yeah.
So I'm out there thinking, oh, that's how we all feel, you know? And then the next, when I married for the first time, not staying, our marriage and that family not surviving, I can promise you, if I did not surrender the heartache, the guilt, the disalignment that is for me even to this day, as incredible as my life is, and I am telling you all, I mean, seriously, you know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to hit my knee. I'm going to say thank you. I swear to y'all, my life, in spite of myself, is incredible. But I, to this day, have to surrender every day the things that I wasn't aware of, or I wish I would have done differently, or my part in the reason that that family didn't make it, and the examples maybe the bad example I was to my children. When I surrender that to God, I swear this is the truth. In my weakness, I surrender what doesn't serve me, and I pick up a, a strength, an understanding, a joy, maybe not always happy, but a joy through surrender that it did not exist for me until I realized this practice of surrender. And I do want to point out it is a practice. This is not oh, I'm going to surrender that, and yay. And God loves me, and this is also good. It is literally a practice. And I think one of the beautiful gifts of surrender is humility. And humility is not thinking less of oneself, but it is thinking of oneself less.
Yeah.
I don't know who told me that, but isn't it
I
wonderful?
like that. That's good.
I'd like to
That's
give
really
credit,
good.
but it's because it's the truth. It doesn't mean don't show up, actually, any of that. It means thinking of other people. I mean, every day I surrender, and there are many things that come up that are new within a day. At the end of the day, I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to correct that, or I want to surrender that and do this differently. I think surrender, taking accountability, first of all, and I take that all the way back to that incredible therapist that taught me what insanity was. But from awareness to accountability, that's all great. And our whole team works under the umbrella of accountability. But then you add this surrender piece, because when you do take accountability, shame is happy to jump in there. Oh, you mean all that was your fault? Well, and then all of a sudden the shame. So it's this awareness, accountability, and then the power comes from surrendering.
So, what does success look like to you now as compared to earlier in your career?
Oh, staying in the present moment and being appreciative like of this incredible moment. It's and realizing that is who knows how many more businesses I'll start in my life, right? But whatever I hope to do and want to do tomorrow and the next day, and the list that's so long you can't see the top or the bottom of it, I think success for me, and I do think it has evolved, that definition, but it is, my goodness, I woke up and I'm so grateful. And if I start with God, and for me, I love that we all come from very different backgrounds, Catholic and Jewish. And I always tell everybody if I wasn't Catholic, I would be Jewish. I love the Jewish faith. But anyway, and I love so much about, I always went to everybody's churches. It's so funny. My mother said, "Oh my gosh, what are you doing?" But to wake up and to have a moment and say, I get to have this day. And I'm going to do the best I can. And what am I going to learn? The minute we think, oh, yeah, well, it's all good, pride before the fall, that's a real thing. And so for me, it's success is, my God, if I'm healthy enough to take on this day, how many people do we know? And maybe it's because I'm 110. I hope not. I hope the youngsters that hear this realize we do not know the failure I had. It is very much part of success. However, it started with presuming, I hope I'm saying that right, that I had more than that one day. Success for me is doing the very best I can, being accountable, starting with gratitude. I mean, I remember somebody saying, "Yeah, but what about the money?" And I said, that changed too. In the olden days, when I would write a check, I'd say, "Thank you, Father, I'm able to write this check." And when people saying, "What am I going to do? I lost my job." I said, "Oh my God, I know this is positively annoying, but this means, what do you really want to do? Let's go get a job that's not your dream job to pay some bills, and let's build something." I think it's loving other people and being loved and being okay with imperfection and with this long, giant list, but being able to take the next step. My God, success is saying you're sorry to somebody. That's a success for, it's not a fun thing to say. Again, it's success is taking accountability for the day ahead.
That is the most unique and awesome definition we've ever had anybody give us for that question. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So we are so close to the end of our time. But tell everybody about your book
Oh,
and what it's going to be about and how they can be a part of it.
oh my goodness. I would thank you for asking. Um, Surrender the Movement is something that the team and I are so excited to get started and take globally. And part of the movement is to educate people through stories about the power of surrender. So we have started, I'm so excited, and I'm looking at two of the co-authors. We are putting together an anthology of stories of surrender, the practice. Again, I can't say it enough. It's surrender. It's so beautiful. It's so powerful. It takes into account becoming aware, finding the strength in surrender. It's this place that through our book we are going to take that globally and tells stories of all kinds so that people are able to find maybe a string of pearls for themselves that empower them to consider and to understand how important they are, regardless of where they are in this moment. We hope it meets people where they are, no matter when they read it. And it empowers people, but mainly reminds every individual how important they are, how important their stories are, how important what they thought maybe was a failure or something they'd never get through, that they made it to, and maybe they're not all the way through it yet, but they're practicing surrender and going to God, to this incredible resource that's not of our own power. That, I mean, you can be a co-author, you can come and listen. There are going to be summits, we are going to have workshops, but surrender, the practice, is going to be this beautiful compilation of stories, individual stories of when people have surrendered in their lives, whether they were forced down to the knees, like I have been before, or they made a choice to surrender, and where they found the power of God working in their weakness so that you can get through another day, but realize you have a community of people that are practicing surrender and that are here to support you and your loved ones, that are curious. It's not comparing, it's not judgmental. It's a group of similar, we are connected. We are so connected. And we hope and pray that through this anthology, that will spread the word and more people will say, yes, oh my gosh, I've needed to hear this. I needed Amy's story. I needed Nancy's story. I needed that story. So many people think that they have this terminal uniqueness. It's not true. And we just hope that that we hope to literally make a positive impact globally. And we're looking for it to change in this time where so many people focus on how disconnected and how different we are and the different beliefs that we have. We hope it connects and brings people together with hope and joy and light and love and goodness. And, everybody's invited. That's Somebody said, you didn't invite me. I said, everybody's invited. There's not a limit. We will go up to if 70 authors in the first book. And as this conversation is going on, I'm not sure when it is airing, but right now we have 11. So right now there are many spots with your names on them on each chapter. So please, carrollpatrizi.com, and join. Let's get on a call. I'm always available.
Oh, you are so absolutely beautiful. I love you. We have one last two-part question before we wrap up today.
Yes.
So, what is your dream for yourself, and what
Oh.
is your dream for women?
Ooh, that makes me want to cry. I'm going to start with women. I don't think in this life that I had for many years that I did not know, and this is, don't want to brag about it because it was horrific, but I learned a lot from it. I thought that I was closer with guys, that I didn't do well with groups of women. And I don't know how many other people feel like that, but I wanted to be outdoors, and there were a lot of things that people talked about, and whether I couldn't have those things or I didn't care about them, I'm not sure which, to be honest. Didn't really matter to me what the reason was. I felt safer with guys. I really did. I felt like their conversations weren't quite as whatever. Comparison, maybe there was a lot of comparing. And let me tell you, I am one of 6 girls and 5 boys, back to that, because it's where I always go back. And again, thank you, Father. They were outstanding. If I were to sit here right now and describe to you, you would be like, oh, your sisters were pretty awesome. You didn't want to be comparing with that group. I certainly didn't, or comparing to my mother. And really, I felt safer and I didn't feel like I needed to compare. I was not aware that I guess culture did it to. I don't know who did it to us, but I do believe it did. Maybe that was just in my world, but it was an energy I felt.
Yeah.
And with the guys, I could go hunting, I could go fishing, which I don't even like to hunt. I want to go sit out there with them and take pictures of the animals and the birds. And but I felt like we were outdoors more. I felt like it was easier. And now what I hope for women is that we surrender that? Can we surrender that? Can we just celebrate when somebody does something tiny that they've never done before or they become president? Can we that's what I hope for women. I hope that it's one of the things I hope what happens through this surrender. I hope we see people surrendering comparison and competition and embrace, let's connect and collaborate and help. That's what I really hope for women. And I think it's one of the reasons I fell in love with y'all is I think that you all do that. I think that's where you come from with what you've created. So thank you for that. Gosh, what do I hope for myself? Was that the other card? Y'all, if you knew the things in my brain that I'm hoping happens, it would be y'all would say, okay, just don't let's act like we didn't ask that question. I really, 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 really hope that by the grace of God, that that what I love to do, which is have these conversations, create this book, the beginning of many books but understanding that although I don't write very well, I am an author, as everyone listening to this is. Let's go back to the beginning. You are the author of your story, and your story matters. And I hope that that continues and evolves so that I am surrounded by people like y'all and people that are just really like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Let's do this. Let's create that. How do we reach more people? I mean, it's so funny. I asked this lady the other day at this Bible study, which y'all would love because it's 35 to 40 different churches all coming together talking about it. And I said, would you please pray for me? Because as we move forward with this, it's a lot of face forward, and I want to make sure that and Melissa Heathers would love this, that my ego is out of the way and that by the grace of God, it's less of me and more of other people, and that I'm doing it that I'm following the Holy Spirit's guide, that it's not like, oh, well, I want to do all and be all this, because those things are true. That is part of it, but I hope it's a tiny part of it.
Thanks for listening to the Passionistas Project. Everything we do is rooted in one belief: women's voices matter. And when we share our stories, we create real change. That's why we launched our anthology book series, Awakening Your Power: Real Stories of Women's Empowerment, a collection of raw, inspiring stories from women who are ready to be seen, heard, and make an impact. And here's the best part: you don't have to be a writer to be a contributing author. Our interview process is how we bring it all to life. We sit down with you, draw out your story in your authentic voice, and shape it into a powerful written chapter. No staring at a blank page, no pressure to get it right, just your truth told your way. When you join us, you're not just writing a chapter. You're stepping into a sisterhood built on storytelling, visibility, and support. From our membership community to podcast features and other opportunities to share your voice, we're here to help you amplify your message in ways that feel aligned. If your story is ready to be told, we're ready to help you tell it. Head to thepassionistasproject.com to learn more, join the sisterhood, and apply to be part of Awakening Your Power, Until next time, stay passionate.